For tonight's Q&A session, in light of someone that actually knows what they're talking about, I'm the host. So tonight we have Colin Simpkins representing the International Canoe Federation. We have Brendan Rice, one of WA's Western Australia's finest. We have Josh Fenn from the famous Fenn family. We have Hank McGregor, the current Mauritius Surfski champion. We have Michelle Byrne, mother of two. We have Hayley Nixon.
Mother of none.
We have Andy. Sorry, Hayley's won tons of shit. We have Andy Molan, New Zealand's finest, and we have Jenna Ward from Durban, who most of you might know. So I think.
No, don't worry.
It's okay.
Yes.
I think I don't know what I'm meant to say or do, but I think we're just going to go open slather on anyone you want to speak to or any questions you want to ask. I can throw some questions at some of these people if no one wants to get the ball rolling. Anyone got a question yet? Good, okay, I'll ask Hank a question. Hank, tell us about the Molokai race this year.
Oh, I just beat Corey Hill, that's all.
And the end, you want to know about that?
Yeah, Molokai feels like ages ago. It was actually only 4 weeks ago. What a race, you know. It's 52 k's of downwind, and eventually you actually don't want to catch another run. As much as everybody wants to surf all the way as the downwind dream, it's probably the worst thing to do, because after about 30 k's you just don't want to chase another run, and if you miss that run you lose 60 meters. So you start adding it up with like another 20 k's to go, you're going to be quite a long way behind. So I think it's one of the toughest races in the world to try and race, let alone just to finish. I think it's one of those races where your stabilizing muscles seem to disappear at about 40k mark. I'm sure the people that have done the Molokai know what I'm talking about. And then the backwash hits you with about 8 k's to go from the island of Woe, and you start like almost feeling like you're paddling more uphill than downhill, and it just gets tougher and tougher. And then you've still got this Portlock Point, China Wall, where everyone's supposed to surf the best waves, and I think by the time you get there, you're just hoping it's just going to be flat and you actually don't catch a wave, because there's a good chance you're going to mess it up. I think here in Dean's Day, there weren't that many cameras, so if you did mess it up, nobody actually got any footage, whereas today you got drones flying over you like giant mosquitoes the whole time. I managed to actually miss China Wall completely. I was neck and neck with Corey Hill at that stage, who was the current record holder, which he told us before the start, that he hopes that it won't. It took 24 years to break your record. It took 24 years to break Dean's record, and Corey said the last thing he wanted is for only to stand for 1 year. That was the talk going across to Molokai prior to the race. Anyway, I took a wide berth, skipped China Walls altogether. It was just closing out. I think there was a few guys that took some lucky lines and managed to maybe get 1 or 2 easier bumps. I took a wide berth, safe line, still picked up a wave. I missed maybe the first 3 of the set. I kept paddling in the direction of the surfers, and the surfers were paddling in the same direction I was going. So I realized that the set was still coming, because obviously they've been sitting there for the last couple of hours surfing the wave, and I could judge by them that there was a bigger set than normal, because everybody was paddling in the same direction I was heading for. So if they had just sat stationary, maybe I would have turned, but I just kept going. Corey, I think, tried to maybe pick up the first one or the second one and realized it was all just closing out, and all that time he was just leaking to me. So by the time I did get to the lineup, I had maybe a good priority over him, and surfed a wave for pretty much a good 200 meters. There was actually a surfer on my wave. The nice thing about Hawaii compared to other parts of the world is that he was actually cheering me on, whereas back home in Durban he'd be telling me to F off, you're messing up my wave. But they actually understood what was happening with the race, and yeah, then it flattened out, and then it reformed into a second reef, which most people actually don't talk about, because it's quite a passive section, and with regards to waves, but it's a hard section to paddle through, because you're pretty much spent. And I picked up a little rudder, and I was going nicely, and next minute, you know, I'm looking for the bridge. We've got about 1.5 km to go, thinking about a whole lot of things. I look back, Corey was about 150 meters back. I thought I could just got to keep it going, just hit the flat water, and about 150 meters from now, just get through this little section. And the next one, I just hit 1, 2, my paddles just hit the reef, and I froze, panicked, and I just turned the ski left. And in doing so, I thought I could maybe just make it over the lip, but the ski it just flopped onto the reef, and I went over. I held on by my juice cord. We don't need leashes there. You don't need life jackets. You actually don't need anything. You just need cash. Because you got to pay for everything. And yeah, anyway, I flipped and jumped back on that ski. I mean, it was shallow. I didn't touch anything, but I was on that ski. The boat was full of water, type of thing. I looked back, and Corey was just. I mean, he looked bigger than normal. And he actually told me he went over the same reef. I think he just let the ski to the side because his paddles also hit. But I mean, look, I had everything to lose, he had everything to gain. So it's, all I was praying for was to get to the flat water without my rudder being in, because then I'd have to have a conversation with Dean. It's quite strict, actually. So anyway, managed to get to the flat water and started like putting the hurt down. Only when I came through the bridge did the boat that was with us, the TV boat, shouted, "Go for the record, go for the record." So, whatever. And I looked down, I was like, oh, 309. All right. I've only got like 600 meters to go to the finish. Good chance if I can't get there in 6 minutes or so, then I'm not really that good. So anyway, went pretty hard and managed to get 311, break the record again. So it did stand for a year. It jinxed, I think Corey jinxed it, but yeah, that was pretty much Molokai wrapped up.
How was your Molokai?
Oh, so you were
40 minutes slow.
Hank's very proud that he smashed me.
No, we can be honest. So we got an internal competition
This is
going
my question. Why are you
for
talking to me?
of how good women are to men. So we've like compared it last year, and we compared it pretty much every race. Even when I'm not even racing, Hayley was sending me the stats, and she'll be like 16% or 15%. So it's like it is something competitive that I think it could be cool if we actually voiced it more on the public platform. But at the moment, yeah, Hayley was 23% behind me at Molokai.
But seriously, it's actually quite like, it's not good to hear that, but it is good to hear that because I felt like I was 30% behind him.
Maybe we should check the times.
Maybe. Yeah, it was just so different for me to last year. I think looking at how the race went for me last year, I kind of applied the same sort of format, which was to be quite conservative. It's 4 hours of racing, and it's quite easy to get sucked into like redlining the whole time if you neck and neck with people, and that's how the race had started the year before. And yeah, I always wonder if I just was too strict about the way I went out. So I was so stubborn in my like, I'm going to be conservative for the first hour or two that I actually forgot that when you're racing, you've still got to race. Like, you've still got to take the race to your competitor, and then you've got to trust your training and sort of go, okay, well, I have been redlining it, I have earned a few matches, but I'm conditioned enough to recover and then still be able to finish hard. But geez, I got so outsmarted off the start and in the first 5Ks, and I looked up at about the 8 or 9K mark, and I was like, I am like hundreds of meters behind. Like, this is not the point. Like, yeah. So then I went into a bit of desperation mode, and I caught this. I remember it clearly. I caught this awesome run, and I had my paddles down, and I even gave myself a little high five and a little whoop, and I thought, this is awesome. Like, Rachel was just ahead of me, and I was like, it's okay, we still got over 30 Ks to go, you can still catch, Rachel's just there, let's get to Rachel, and then we'll start working our way back through the field, hopefully. And no sooner had I looked up and seen Rachel, and I fell out. So like, not even 10 Ks into the race, I can't even remember the last time I fell out, and I fell out there. So yeah, it was just like, okay, so then I popped back up, and it's funny that she mentions 60 meters is equal to a swim, because I came out, and I was like, she is gone. Like, she was tangible, now she's gone. I don't even know where anybody else is. So that was how my Molokai started, and I think, yeah, I mean, it was awesome. I still was able to surf and do my thing and try and catch up, but you certainly get unraveled and unnerved, and then you kind of, they always talk about with downwind racing is about being relaxed and letting the wave move you and letting the sea move you, and you tend to just default to chase it. and chasing and like worrying about where things are going. But I had an awesome sort of crew on the boat, and our goal was to stick to the rum line, and they were giving me direction. And I think I actually came into my own in that section where Hank talks about sort of 8Ks where it started getting a lot of rebound. I felt like that's where I actually made up time. So maybe in the long run, the endurance and the conditioning did pay off, because up until then I'd probably been about 5th place, and then managed to actually catch up and overtake 2 of the other women, and then at least get myself back into 3rd place. But I went super conservative in that sort of area. And you know in your heart, like if you've had a good race, you can see it in the splits, you can see it, in the field. And I sort of got there and thought, this isn't good, but I'm passing someone, so maybe I'm still top 5 or whatever. And then Paul and my escort must have gone past the media boat and said, who's come through? Like, where's Hayden lying? And I think it was like these 2 12-year-old kids who didn't get a continental, and they were like, no, she's the first girl. So then they come to me and they're like, Hell's like, you might be first. We actually haven't seen anyone. We've just seen you overtake those 2. Like, maybe you are in the mix. And I looked at him and I was like, you are dreaming. Like, I know I'm far behind. And the scary thing is that's how far ahead those 2 are. We can't even see them, which is obviously not what we expected after last year. So anyway, make the best of it and paddled the last sort of 3 or 4 Ks home, and that was the end of that. So 2 pretty different experiences, relatively similar conditions. I'm still stoked. It's an unbelievable race, and definitely the hardest thing, and like really mentally tough. Like it's grueling out there, and you've got a long way to go. And if you're hurting halfway, suck it up, princess. Like you still got to push through 2 hours. Yeah, that was good.
So to put you in the picture, I've done close to 30 of those races. The Molokai race. I started in '88 and. I did it again this year and on a double ski, but this was the best year that I've ever had out there. It was absolutely phenomenal. So,
Did you on a double?
I was on a double ski. I didn't have to do much work. I had an awesome guy behind me, but conditions-wise, it was just absolutely incredible. There was never really a moment during the race this year that you weren't thinking about catching a run. And in the past, there's been sections where you've gone, I haven't caught a run for a little while, So it was unbelievable, and to be on a double and actually be at the front of the field again, I haven't been there for a long time, and watch these guys race was a real awesome experience for me. So I was super stoked to be in that situation, and just behind Corey and Hank was a guy called Pat Dolan, one of the local boys, and it was really good for the race to see him do so well. And get, he was a minute or 2 behind, the 2 best paddlers in the world, and it was fantastic. And watch those 3 guys battling it out across the channel. It was an awesome experience. So, Jenna, let's any other questions for Hank and?
Yeah, just compare the conditions in Molokai, the speed of the runs and the difficulty of catching them, to like what we had here today. So I've heard that they're really fast runs. So what you're saying about you becoming exhausted trying to get onto the damn things, is that right? Are they really fast and you've got to?
So when you cross the channel, you've obviously got the ground swell. From where we are here, you've got the swell coming majority over your left-hand shoulder. So when you're racing Molokai, it's coming over your right-hand shoulder. So that's like the biggest difference. Depending how south it's running, meaning the angle of the big ground swells can actually take you to the middle of nowhere. So you can pick on the big one, especially off the start. Some guys are like, they're going really, the average is really well, but they're heading south. And I mean, in the Wahoos, you can pick it up on a clear day. You can see the 50 Ks, but it isn't. I mean, it is a far shot. Yes, the runs. Well, we'll give you an idea. We average 3:36 start to finish. That's including I think first 5 Ks we were on 4 minutes a K. Like when Dean was with us, I mean, I actually heard Dean say, "Gee, it's been a while since I've been up here." But it was the pace. I actually said before the race, guaranteed Dean's going to win it on the double, because he had a strong partner, not because of Dean. But the double can pick up those big ground swells, and you got so much more momentum. So we actually split, I think, at about 4 or 5 K. Dean carried on like the rum line, and I tended to go north, like head up. So basically get some time on the bank with regards to an angle, So the last maybe 8-9 Ks, you can run it down with those big ground swells. Means you can pick up that, what you're talking about when we're down to maybe like a 318, 316 type of pace for the kilometer. But like I say, you have to work the wind chop enough to actually pick up enough speed to actually surf that big one. Whereas here our averages have been sub 310s, 309. So I think the pace here, depending on how strong the current is on the tide, I think we can have just as faster runs, maybe even faster. Molokai has never been a fast downwind. I mean, people have clocked. I mean, you can ask Oscar; he's clocked it every day, faster times in the record, even into the wind. But the main thing is it's the technical part of Molokai. I think is the hard thing. It's like you almost there's a lot of forces against you compared to with you. Even though, like Dean said, it was the nicest that crossing that we've done. I think the conditions last year were pretty similar as well. I mean, we never really thought that we'd break the record. Last year, we managed to break it. This year, we thought there was no rising tide. So the locals said we weren't going to have the current with us, the tide with us in the last 10 Ks, whereas we had it big time last year. So that would help you through that section that we were talking about where it's choppy. You actually got more momentum with you. Now we had nothing. So it was pretty flat. But in terms of speed, I've clocked some of my fastest times on Molokai when we were actually staying there and you're just going for a downwind run and you can actually you've got the power to actually get onto those runs, whereas after 2.5 hours, you're pretty much spent. Everything's cramping and I don't want to tell you all my bad things, but it's not beautiful, put it that way.
Any other questions for Hank or Hayley at this stage? We've got all night, so.
You only said threes. I'm not going.
So Jenna, do you want to tell us
You only
about,
said threes.
sorry, was there a question?
No, I train
No.
now and again, and we've got this mythical mark in some of our training sessions to go under 3 minutes a K is like, that's proper, that's unbelievable, mythical. You can't physically paddle that fast, the runs have got to push you that fast. I just asked Hank if he did any sub threes, and in training, Hank at home can do sub 3. So I want to compare for myself on the conditions at home.
No, I didn't get anywhere near. I don't even think. I don't know what you did, but I didn't really tap under 3. I averaged a really good average, like 320. I pretty much did around about 25 320s, somewhere around there, consistently in the middle of the channel, which brought the average down. Because you remember the last 3 Ks, we're going into the wind. So when you come around Portlock Point, it's pretty much like how we're racing now. Once you go past Lemoine, then all of a sudden the wind, there's no runs. You're like, whoa, what happened to the runs? That's pretty much like Molokai. You come around, you catch one wave, you might mess it up, then you're in the middle of nowhere and the wind's actually a headwind. And you've still got like 2.5 to 3 Ks to go until you actually get to the finish line. So if you add up 3 and 4, 5 in the beginning, you're looking at like 8 Ks where there's no way you'll be averaging sub 4. So to still get around, I mean the previous record was, I think it was like 350 odd average until Corey broke it last year, which and then obviously to break it again this year we had to average sub 340, we're down to 336.
And are you aware the whole time of those splits? What instrumentation have you got?
I've got a normal Garmin. I set it on average kilometer speed, so I can see what I'm going to do for the K. It's not like a mystery. And then also when I found like if you're watching just the speed the whole time, like on normal kilometers an hour, and like I find you're watching TV too much. You actually just focused on that and not what you need to be actually focused on. So like if I'm not looking at it, the beep goes off on the kilometer, you can actually see it. Okay, that was a good one. The problem is when it beeps and it's not a good one, and then you try and make it a good one and it's still not a good one, and then it's like 3 later and you're like, Jesus, like come on.
Okay, Jenna, tell us how you got into paddling and where you're from and a bit of history on yourself.
So I'm from Durban in South Africa. Started paddling when I was 10, so I've been paddling for 16 years. My dad was a paddler, and I think just from going to the river every day and sitting watching him paddling, I decided it would probably be better just to get on the water myself. And I used to live on the south coast in Mauritius, and then recently I've just moved over into Durban, well not recently, 5 years, into Durban. Hank's dad, Lee McGregor, is my coach. We train in Durban. I'm more of a flat water paddler, I would think, but I obviously do surfski, and I've paddled in the sea since I was 15 or so, so I kind of enjoy doing all the disciplines. I do rivers, the marathons, and Hank always tells me like, you should try not be a jack of all trades and try and actually master one, because I'm not really good at one of them. I'm just like maintaining all of them. But I really enjoy changing it up, and I think if I didn't do all the disciplines, I would probably not be paddling so competitively still. I think that's what makes me enjoy the sport so much, that I can paddle on the river one day, paddle on the sea the next, go up to the river the next day. So yeah, that's, I guess, my story.
I think that's wise words from Hank to master one, because I think once you master one, you think your shit doesn't stink and you're good at the rest after. I think if you can get really good at one, you think you're pretty invincible, right? So you can go into all the other ones and do pretty well.
I wish I would.
So Andy, what's going on in? Oh, you live in Andy's a Kiwi, right? So he's well, like all the rest of the Kiwis, he's moved over to Australia and got on our social welfare system and stuff like that. So he's now living in Perth. But what's going on in New Zealand with regards to ski paddling?
Yeah, so there's a pretty good scene. Like there's heaps of paddlers there, and probably in the clubs there's 30-40 paddlers out every Saturday morning for paddle. So there's a big scene there. Competitively, it's definitely off with the guys. The girls, there's a few girls really pushing it and doing well. All the sprint paddlers are based in Auckland, paddling other Lake Rukoki as well. So I train with them a bit when I'm back there. So it's from the kayaking scene, it's probably more focused on the sprints. There's plenty of good ski races. I sort of moved over to Perth just to get it for work, but also get a lot more competition, more consistent downwind as well. Sort of finding in Auckland it's patchy, like you get good in all conditions, and especially when it's in like a small harbour chop. But it's not, you don't get the conditions where it blows 20 knots every day with a big swell. So I think that's been the big learning, I guess, from being in Perth the last 6 months. Just getting a downwind in 4 or 5 times a week, it's been fun.
What's the most popular boat there?
Oscar Stella, the other Kiwi, he's the Fen dealer, so he does pretty well with the Fens there. There's plenty of airpacks around, and then there's a Think dealer in the South Island, so that's probably the most popular. It's sort of quite localised, there's sort of dealers around the country in that region that is the majority of the boats.
Perth's way better, right?
Oh, it's a lot of fun. Do plenty a bit of marathon paddling as well, so paddling in the river in Perth.
And Michelle, the transition from motherhood to back to paddling, how's all that going?
No, it's cool. Like I was actually just chatting to some of the guys earlier, and like I think for me, without paddling in sports, then I'm actually just not me. So the sooner I could get back into a boat and doing what I love, then the sooner I feel human again. And it makes me a better mom. I go for a paddle, I come back happy. If I haven't had a paddle or done some exercise in a couple of days, my husband actually sends me because I can get a bit grumpy without it. So yeah, it's definitely, it's who I am. I've been paddling since I was about 14 or so through surf lifesaving. And to me, I just love catching runs and paddling. So yeah, for me, the transition was pretty easy. As soon as I was able to get back in a boat after having them, that was me. It was a no-brainer. Yeah.
So how old are your kids now?
So Corey turned 8 months yesterday. So he's 8 months old now, and then Anna back home, she's 4 now. There was a bit of a gap because my daughter didn't sleep and it was tough. So getting back after having Anna was pretty tricky. Once the sleep came back, then my performance also came back. But yeah, luckily he's a lot more chilled and he sleeps nicely, so I'm feeling like I'm finally getting strong again. Yeah.
Michelle got a silver medal between her two children, so it's,
Whoa.
yeah.
A what?
You got a silver medal
Oh,
between them, so.
Yeah, but it's just because I love it. So yeah, it makes it pretty easy for me to do something that you love.
And is it true both you and Jenna paddle with a 2 metre paddle?
I do, yes.
What length do you paddle with?
She paddles with toothpicks. I can't do that. I actually, at one of the first races after having Korea, I went to a race and I forgot my paddles at home. That's what happens when you have kids. So yeah, I had to, I almost borrowed, I think it was from you or someone.
Borrowed my dad's paddles.
Eventually, thankfully, he had the same type of paddle. Oh no, it wasn't, yes. So I borrowed paddles that Jenna uses, little ones. And I just felt like I was just, I don't know, it's just obviously I have a very slow stroke rate. A lot of people have said my paddles seem big for a girl.
Same paddles you use?
Yeah,
same as me,
I use the Freya, the Gara.
Donuts.
A lot of people argue that it's quite a big blade. I've tried numerous times to go smaller, but I've got a super slow and I think efficient stroke rate. So when I did try to go smaller, I just felt like my heart rate was getting a bit too high and I just wasn't comfortable. So I've stuck with the Freya shape and I love it.
So what length do you use?
I sit on about 205,
Okay.
so a little bit longer than Jenna.
And Jenna, you're 2 metre.
Yeah.
Sorry, that was me today.
Yeah,
I asked Jenna what length she paddled, and I said today, oh.
But if you've looked at Jenna, like,
Yeah.
so we might seem similar height, but I think if we sat on the floor, I've got quite a long torso, so
Okay.
I do sit a bit higher, and Jenna's still slow. So I think 2 meters is probably fine.
Yeah, we're having this discussion back home with Lee and Hank recently, but from a marathon perspective, I raced a world marathon with a 208 and I got a bronze medal with a Jantex paddle. The next year I raced a 2 meters with the Brutcha, which is like a 2 extreme, and I got a bronze medal again. So I then stuck to the 2 meters, which I'm on now, and in a flat water Van der Kiski from Hungary, who's the world marathon champ, paddles with the 2 meters. So I thought, okay, well she's paddling 2 meters, I can paddle 2 meters, and I haven't gone back longer than that before. I have tried a few sessions with Hank where he said, okay, lengthen out, and maybe it's just mental. I'm like, no, it's definitely slow when I go longer. But it is the goal when we get home to maybe try and lengthen out a bit, especially because I do have quite a fast stroke, so maybe by lengthening out I'll slow it down. But yeah, but for now I've been paddling 2 and I use it across all the disciplines, and it seems to work.
Which is probably important, right? Because it's whatever works.
Yeah.
You know, there's a lot of people that will give you a lot of advice on different things, but everyone's different. We're all different body shapes and whatever.
Yeah.
And as Hank was saying, I use a girl's paddle, so you know, so it's whatever works for you, and don't be too guided by what people tell you should be using. Just get used to what you're actually using. So I'm sure Big Flash up the back there uses the biggest paddle in the world. So yeah, and same with rating and the way your stroke works. It's all different. So. So this year was, I reckon it was Josh Fenn's breakout year, you know, with a 5th at Molokai, which was an astronomical. Everyone said he's had the potential, but he's just been too lazy to prove it. So it was actually really good to see him cross the line, you know, in such a high position this year, and you know, like in such a talented field too. You know, when you look at the depth of the field that was at Molokai this year, it was actually a pleasure to watch Josh do so well. So tell us about your Molokai.
You know, I don't actually enjoy paddling. I don't really have a choice. But well, I stay in a room with Hank, so I got a little pep talk every night. Kind of just told me game plans.
You told me you were going to beat me every single night. I was like, prove it.
I was close. Next year. Yeah, so they basically said it all, Hale and Hank. I was just also conservative in the start. I don't know, like 53 Ks or 52. That was probably the longest paddle I've ever done. And the longest one before that would have been maybe 30 Ks, whole screen paddle, 28. So yeah, I was like, I don't know if I'm the last. So I only got to about 25 Ks, so like halfway. I was like, yeah, I'm still feeling good. I didn't know where I was lying. I couldn't see anyone. I just saw boats up to the north and boats down to the south, and I kind of just like took the run line. And yeah, just got halfway, still felt good. I was like, yeah, I might as well just keep going. It's downhill from here. Eventually, after 10 Ks, I caught up to Michael Booth and Macca. I kind of went up north because Hank said the runs are coming from over your right shoulder, so working into it, and then towards the end you go with it. So I took it as advice for once. Good work. Hold on. Yeah, I caught up to them, and obviously we were all tired by then. But some of them, I don't know, just in their stroke you can see like when someone's tired, like their shoulders just drop. It looked like they were a little tired, so I was like, okay, well I've caught up to them. Can't be that bad. And then racing the top guys in the world, like obviously, I don't know, it got to my head a little bit, so I was like, got a bit of confidence. So I started picking it up, and 2Ks, I just picked it up a little bit. Got my stats a bit faster, so I was like, hey, let's try to keep it up. Looked behind me, I saw that actually I'd put a few hundred meters on them. And then I saw 2 other boys to the left, and afterwards I found out there was Austin Kiefer, Clint, and who was the other one? Ali. And I kind of saw one boat, I went past them, and I didn't know who it was, like you can't see anything. And yeah, Hank said that last 7 Ks is going to be hell when you bounce in and you don't know what's going on. Yeah, and we got to China Wall, which is supposed to be the place where you catch the wave, and Hank says you don't try to catch the wave. I was hoping for waves, so I didn't have to paddle anymore. And I looked behind me and I got to the portlock point with Clint, and I was like, oh no, here's trouble because we've got 2 Ks of flats and obviously it's Clint. And next thing, we both missed the wave because it was closing out, we went far around. And I saw him come in hot behind me, like he was coming onto me quickly, and we both kind of, I got into a wave, he got into one on that second reef where Hank had a swim. I don't know why he can't stay in his boat. Yeah, and then I was burning, like I couldn't lift my arms. Last K, I just saw him coming, I was like, okay, we've got a kilometer left. Let's call it 5 minutes, that's how I was feeling at that stage. And yeah, I got through the little bridge, turned right, saw the finish line, I was like, okay, we got maybe, 50 meters on him. Let's just keep going, and yeah, I just managed to hold him off. So I don't know where I was lying when I crossed the line, but I think, who was it? You weren't standing there. No, you weren't watching me. I think it was you.
I was changed already.
Oh yeah. Yeah, and someone said that I was in fifth.
Cold from the swim.
Yeah, someone said that I was in fifth, and I couldn't believe it. And yeah, it was just, I don't know, probably one of the best experiences I've had. Before Hank said you won't enjoy this paddle, like you won't want to come back. But if the conditions are the same next year, I'll definitely be back. If the factory's back again.
To put you in the picture as well, Hank, Josh, myself, Haley, we're all looked after quite lavishly actually by our event sponsors in
South Africa, Surfski chairman for many years, and that Surfski committee in South Africa put it out to the major races in the country whether they would like to host a World Cup event, and we had an like a unanimous no thank you from our races in South Africa across the board.
Let Europe organise it, they can provide the prize money, we'll go there.
Well, our race organisers specifically were not keen to host a World Cup event, and our committee and the way the South African structures work, our structures are volunteer based. Colin will, so our structures are a board basically that runs the sport, and outside of that board, each of the disciplines, so marathon, I know that Jen actually sits on our marathon committee, our sprinting committee, our Surfski committee are all volunteer based, and the committee as a whole don't have the resources to run a World Cup. It would have to be someone with the resources in a race that would be already established to run one, and yeah, well, our races haven't stepped up to the plate.
What are the other criteria? I mean, does that specific
Colin will have to fill you in on a lot of that stuff. I know that there's traditionally in the past, just from my side, I know that there were certain criteria, like trying to have them downwind. I know that we've got a set of safety orientated stuff in South Africa that applies, and a couple of other things. But yeah, I don't think we ever got that far in South Africa. Our races just said no thanks. Yeah.
Could it be held anywhere?
Or it could be held
Anywhere that has a canoe federation, right?
Yeah.
That's the other thing is that in South Africa, all of our paddlers belong to the federation. In a lot of other countries, that's not the case. So in Australia, for example,
So 90% of our paddlers that do our races wouldn't be a member of Australian Canoeists. And they
So-
wouldn't even know what it is.
because it's the International Canoe Federation World Championships, you can't enter that if you aren't a member of the International Canoe Federation. So by virtue of that, you have to belong to your country's federation.
There was an issue in Australia, and then sorry, Tahiti a couple of years ago at Worlds, where 90% of the Australian team picked by their own federation weren't members of their federation. That they had to go and do registrations that day.
All right, that's enough about the ICF. Any other questions for these guys? Any other questions for these guys up here? There must be one or two from the floor.
Segment we don't see in South Africa.
What's that?
What boat are you on?
Fairness.
No. What happened to Ocean?
Yeah, so at home I'm making ocean built Surfskis. So it's me and my dad and a mate of ours.
Is that your company?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So why haven't you got a boat yet?
I was too late to organise it. I actually tried, but I left it too late and it was just going to be too expensive. And I think I need to organise one for next year and start organising now.
It's really strange because the races are normally very, very well.
All right.
Do any of you guys, when you're training, look at your stroke rate and meters per stroke and those kinds of technical gadgetry?
A lot of the time those things change so much, you know, like low tide, your meters per stroke are going to be lower than on a full tide, and like, you know, the salinity of the water can affect that. Anything, even little things you can't really measure. So I don't look at any statistics like that, but I definitely think about technique every time I paddle. It's definitely
I think
more of a feel though.
unless you've got a constant to measure it against, it's pointless. And in the ocean, there is no constant.
Like you can't really look at distance, but you can, like, for me, I know I always, just from swimming days, just it's drilled into my brain to count my strokes. So like, I know that I'll do 43 strokes per minute. So like, but that's like, so even when I'm doing 4-minute sessions, I just count to 43 4 times.
You pack all your plastic brothers.
Yeah, so if your Garmin, I don't know, something happens, you kind of know when your like interval's up or whatever. It's just being drilled into my head. It's like swimming, you know how many legs you take before you tumble. So like under 43 strokes per minute. Of course, if you're doing 1 minute, you got to like depends on how long your interval is. You might get a few more, like 46 to 50, depending on how short your interval is. But generally, when I'm just doing a long paddle, it's about 43 strokes.
So, because Oscar is an incredibly slow stroke rate on the runs, and Jasper is incredibly fast.
Yeah.
So,
There's probably two extremes right there. You know, Pete Robinson and Jasper, I think, would probably be the two extremes.
They counter it with their talking.
But then, Jasper's won 3 doctor events and Clint's never won. He's won 1. You know, so what works? You know, it's.
But that's the irony, like, in the beauty of it. Like, there's no one blueprint. Like, every person's got their own length and the way they train and their own body shape. Yet, you just compare body shape Hank and Jasper, but they've both got lots of titles.
But then it's frustrating because how do I?
You got to work it out yourself, right? Ignore all of this.
It depends what the outcome is. What do you want? You like, if you want to catch runs, then you catch runs. Like, so if you're
I want
paddling.
to break my Miller's Run PB.
Well, there you go. You want to catch runs, so you got to learn to catch runs.
Yeah.
And that the paddling's just the conduit to catch runs, right? So the stroke during the process of catching a run might be that big, or it might be that big. It's catching the run that counts, and it might not be a stroke at all. It might be a body movement. So work on catching runs.
More downwards.
Yeah, you got to do more down.
Sorry, Shaz.
Do more than 2 a day.
Rob, how many have you done this year?
I don't know, about 50.
Shaz? They should be up here.
Yeah.
60 done with this year. That's insane.
So can we not fit another one in today after the race?
Yeah.
Because it's
We can
such
paddle
good
back.
work
Tomorrow.
to-
Tomorrow.
Yeah. Because there's the relay. Can we not after that do a proper done?
Please, Uncle.
Logistically, probably not.
Can we not do the relay down in the morning after?
There are logistics involved, and the program's for a reason. We all paddle. I get off the water last normally with the back guys, but there's a lot of work afterwards with trailers, the tying on, the guys coming back. They'll have a full day on the Saturday again, so that's why the program's published prior. You all knew that you're not going to be paddling tomorrow. That's why FTL was also moved to Friday, because we used to have it, initially it was on the Wednesday, then it shifted to the Thursday, then it moved to the Friday. So it's just to try accommodate the whole structure. Downwinds are good, but some of the guys haven't done all downwinds. I've done every paddle this week, and I've been at the back every time. My body's sore. I'm not going at the speeds of you guys, but if you really wanted to paddle every day, you would have been at every paddle, and you could have paddled back to me and done some more downwind. And I think the only guy that came back once was Ernst. He was the only chap. Dean's done a couple of laps, so I'm sure he can have a rest day.
Actually, while we're on that,
What time is the FTR tomorrow?
yeah, what is the program for tomorrow?
So it's a 9:30 for 10 registration. 11 we're going to do the relay race. It's really fun. You'll get to know everyone. We'll do a draw once everyone's there, and you'll go in teams. You'll get to paddle with these guys. Last year, Dean threw in a curveball with you have to get out of your boat and in your boat. Very entertaining. Collins left the room, but he couldn't get back in his boat. So yeah, there will be a lot of laughter. It's a nice photo day. You get really good footage, photos. It brings everyone together, because race day, you're individual. You're caring about yourself. Tomorrow's a bit of chaos.
Super. No complaints.
So yeah.
I won't ask another.
Sorry. Cool.
Well, any other questions at all, guys? So we'll call it a wrap. Thanks to these guys for sharing their wisdom. And good luck to everyone in the race on the weekend.